name is Jennifer Cohn. I'm with the National Voting Rights Task Force. I'm an attorney and an election security advocate, and we are here, the National Voting Rights Task Force, to encourage Senator Diane Feinstein to show leadership by endorsing the SAFE Act, which is a very important election security bill. I'm going to give you some reasons why we feel so strongly that this bill needs to be supported and endorsed immediately. Something that most people don't realize is that America's voting system is dangerously centralized in the hands of just two voting machine vendors. Those two vendors are ES&S in Nebraska and Dominion Voting. The two vendors account for more than 80% of U.S. election equipment. So if bad actors infiltrated either vendor, either from the inside as corrupt insiders or by hacking, they could wreak havoc on elections throughout the United States. ES&S by itself accounts for 44% of U.S. electronic voting equipment. It was started in the 1980s by two brothers with money from the families of religious right activists who belonged to a group called the Council for National Policy. To give you an idea about the Council for National Policy, its current members include Kellyanne Conway, Steve Bannon, Wayne LaPierre of the NRA, Richard DeVos, and the Mercers, who started Cambridge Analytica, and that's the group where Steve Bannon was the vice president. One of the two brothers who founded ES&S moved to another vendor around 2000, whose largest shareholder and senior programmer was a convicted embezzler whose crimes involved sophisticated tampering with computer files. Again, this is a voting machine vendor in the United States, a very large one. That vendor with the convicted embezzler was Global Election Systems, which later changed its name to Diebold Election Systems and was then acquired back by ES&S around 2009. In 2010, the Department of Justice, at Chuck Schumer's request, investigated this monopoly and insisted that ES&S sell off some of Diebold Election Systems' assets. And that's where Dominion Voting, a previously obscure voting machine vendor in Canada, arose from obscurity to buy those assets. So now we're left with these two vendors accounting for 80% of U.S. election equipment. It's a monopoly. And both of those vendors are currently owned by private equity, which means that we really don't know who is behind, who is funding and controlling these voting machine vendors. It's dark money. They're dark money funded. In recent years, voting machine vendor ES&S has lied repeatedly about the security of its elections. Just in the past few years, it was caught lying to the press about installing remote access software in its election management systems used in 300 jurisdictions throughout the United States. ES&S will not disclose what those 300 jurisdictions are. Also in the past year, it was caught lying about its systems connecting to the internet. It had said that its election systems do not connect to the internet. This was repeated often by top election officials, and it turns out that that was a lie. And its systems do in fact connect to the internet. Many of its systems do connect to the internet. We know less about Dominion Voting because it's a more recent player in U.S. elections, but it does some of its programming in Serbia, whose government is closely aligned with Russia. Not only that, Dominion simply won't say whether it's installed remote access in its election management systems as well. Both of these two mega voting machine vendors are selling a dangerous new type of voting equipment throughout the United States called a ballot-marking device. According to the most respected and renowned election auditing expert in the United States, election outcomes cannot be confirmed if ballot-marking devices are used as a primary voting system. Yet jurisdictions throughout the United States, including counties in California, including LA County, which is the largest county in the United States, are turning to these new voting systems, ballot-marking devices, for use by all voters. It's an incredibly dangerous situation. Some of the other jurisdictions that have turned to these new ballot-marking devices as we race toward 2020 include Georgia, South Carolina, and Delaware. Those the entire states are turning to these dangerous new voting systems, according to leading experts. Counties in the following states, one or more, oftentimes the largest county in the following states, have also turned toward these dangerous new ballot-marking device systems as we race toward 2020. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, as I said, California, New York, New Jersey, Texas, West Virginia, Montana, Kansas, Indiana, And Florida, I don't know if any counties have purchased it yet, but they've recently passed legislation that would allow these dangerous new ballot marking device systems. Both of these two mega vendors, ES&S and Dominion Voting, have donated to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell through lobbyists. McConnell, in turn, has blocked meaningful election security legislation, specifically the SAFE Act. He won't even allow a vote on the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act would require a type of robust manual audit called a Risk Limiting Audit for all federal elections. It would require that all voters have the option to use a hand-marked paper ballot rather than these insecure new ballot marking devices. It would ban the internet connectivity and remote access that America's largest vendors have lied about. It would ban the most dangerous types of ballot marking devices that are on the market. And it would provide funding for election security subject to these specific requirements that I just mentioned. The funding deadline is November 21st, so timing is very important. Mitch McConnell, however, recently received accolades, and wrongly so, for instead agreeing to provide $250 million in funding that he called election security funding. But as Senator Ron Wyden pointed out, this election security funding eliminated all election security requirements. This is unconscionable, and as noted by Senator Ron Wyden, it's a sham. We are encouraging Senator Diane Feinstein to show leadership by supporting SAFE Act election security bill, which Ron Wyden authored, and we hope that with her leadership we can get all Democratic senators on board, and then we'll need only a handful of Republicans to push this over the finish line. Thank you.
Hardcore. And Mark,